All right, thank you. Alongside Frankie Corrado, Jeff O'Neill, and Darren Dreger with you for the next half hour or so. We'll get all sorts of post-game reaction from both rooms and lots from these guys. For the Maple Leafs, for their fans, for us, it's Groundhog Day. Analyzing what went wrong in a Leafs playoffs failure. 9 years running now. This time they make it to the second round. They take the Stanley Cup champions to Game 7. Does that make it less painful or more painful because of the way they went out?
No, it's just torturous all the way around. I don't know if it's more painful than years past, James, but the big question we asked before the playoffs started was, is this team different? That's what we kept tossing around. Different coach, different D-man, goaltending situations seem to be shored up, but at the end of the day, they're not different. They keep getting themselves in these situations, and they end up losing this game. And you want to talk about torture for the fan base, who in Game 5 had to witness the same thing, and then they get sucked back in Game 6, and they're like, okay, it's actually going to be different like we just talked about. Yeah. And then they go back to Game 7, and they just could not build off the energy of the crowd at the beginning of the game, other than some opportunities off the rush that the goaltender stopped. And then after that, they completely got crushed. And it is a team game. Florida Panthers play an extremely good team game. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, it is about the team. But the common denominator is the same four or five guys are around for all of these losses. And it might seem different that they played a little bit longer. It seems like they've been playing a long time. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 2 playoff series victories. Yeah. That's what we've got total.
There's a couple things that you say there that really stand out. The first thing is, this is like, you've been talking about the leafiest thing ever. This is the leafiest thing ever. To lose the way you did in Game 5, have an unbelievable performance in Game 6, and then lose this way in Game 7. And maybe it was the Florida Panthers who just didn't have their game in Game 6. And then they said, you know what? We can turn up the dial a little bit. And that's exactly what the Florida Panthers did. You think about Game 5 and Game 7. 6 different goal scorers for the Florida Panthers in each of those games, and none of them included Barkov or Tkachuk. That is a well-rounded team right there. No one had to be the hero for the Florida Panthers. They just had to do it as a team, and the Toronto Maple Leafs could not match that. And now, it feels like this is an appropriate way for this era to kind of end.
Well, and we'll undoubtedly get into that here in the Hot Zone as the post-game continues. But look, the lack of response is difficult to explain in Game 7. But I do think that it's also fair to say that there is growth within this group. There is. And Leaf fans may not feel that right now. You're talking about losing a 7-game series to arguably the best team in the game right now, the Florida Panthers. So, yeah, there's disappointment. There should be disappointment. Were there no-show performances? I would say yes in Game 5 and again in Game 7. But I don't think it's fair to disembowel the Toronto Maple Leafs for losing to the Florida Panthers in a 7-game series.
One of the craziest thing, and if you just look at some of the details of the game, I think any coach that coaches a quality hockey team, they would all say the same thing when it comes to one of these moments, that they didn't need to address the team, that they were ready to do the job. And on the bench, they just sit back and watch because they're quiet and they're confident and they know they're going to do their thing. And there you had Craig Berube in the second period losing it on his team in Game 7 to get some emotion and to get their feet moving. That's crazy to think that you would have to yell at your team in this situation. It's just one of those things that got my attention. Game 7, and you're yelling at everyone to wake up and get their feet moving? Yeah, that was one of the crazy storylines of the game.
And you know what else? It's like the Florida Panthers, they live for a game like this. They're built for a game like this. They love these moments. And for the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's a little bit of a wait-and-see approach in these types of things just because there's such a long history of them not prevailing. So as far as this one-game sample size go, like the Florida Panthers, they were built for a game like this.
I don't know if anybody's really built for it. I think the term or what they are is they're comfortable in the game.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it seems like Toronto was uncomfortable all evening. It's like, how do we generate something? How do we create? How do we get this done? They just didn't seem comfortable, and Florida seemed very comfortable in this hockey game.
Psychologists always talk about fight, flight, or freeze in situations of stress and pressure. And it just seems like the Leafs go to the freeze stage. They're in the fight stage early when, at the beginning of the series and maybe when the pressure's off a little bit and after they have that awful Game 5 and Game 6. And they're
in a fight always in the series until it gets to a certain point and then
freeze.
Then they freeze.
We'll get to the autopsy and what happens next with the franchise, as Drake's mentioned, in a second. But first, let's spend a little bit of time on this game because you're right. The games 5 and 7 at home, they get outscored 12-2. And it started awful. And then there was some life, tons of life in that second 10 minutes of the first period. And it's almost like a bizarre TSN turning point with the Rooney injury to his eye, the ref.
Yeah,
and they came out of that, and in 6 minutes, Florida scores 3 goals, and the game is essentially over. So what went wrong besides everything in this one?
It really got the feeling in this hockey game that the first team that was going to make a mistake, whether it be a penalty or in the offensive zone or in the neutral zone, it was going to be costly, and the other team was going to win the hockey game. And that's exactly what happened in this neutral zone. Morgan Riley decides to go up and pinch, not the greatest back check in the neutral zone by Matthew Nyes, and they just get in and Seth Jones makes them pay. That's one of those situations where you got to get puck, you got to get body. You just can't get beat in the neutral zone. And the first team that was going to get that open ice opportunity was going to make the opposition pay and most likely win the hockey game, and that's exactly what happened.
And listen, credit to the Florida Panthers, because their process is just do the same thing over and over again. Whether it's game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, nothing really changes. They don't deviate from their game plan. There was never going to be any surprises for the Toronto Maple Leafs as far as what the Florida Panthers are going to throw their way. They're going to clog up the neutral zone. They're going to wait for you to make your mistakes, and then they're going to try and capitalize, and that's exactly what happens. And we saw it, as Jeff just talked about. Morgan Riley pinches in, doesn't have support. It's in the back of your net. And then you get playing in the defensive zone, which is something that was a constant theme for them this entire night, and it's going to come back to bite you again. A missed coverage in front of the net. Those are the types of mistakes. There's nothing special about what the Florida Panthers are doing here. Maybe this is special. Seth Jones does a great job to make sure he doesn't touch this puck and keep it onside. But again, it's another mistake by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and there you have it. Craig Berube, just like Jeff talked about, having to address his team in a Game 7 when it shouldn't need any addressing. There was no surprises as far as what the Panthers were going to do, and the Leafs fed right into it.
Yeah, and look, another big game for veteran Brad Marchand against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's give Bill Zito, the general manager of the...
Oh, my God, I'm sick of watching that guy play.
Let's give Billy Zito a little bit of love and a little bit of credit.
Love,
yeah, I mean, you know, he acquires Brad Marchand at the trade deadline from the Boston Bruins. I mean, that's a meaningful ad. But you go back in the season when they made the Seth Jones trade with the Chicago Blackhawks, I think all of us are going, geez, what kind of player are they getting in Seth Jones? The guy that, you know, we saw struggle at times in Chicago? No. They're getting the guy that was a star in a clinching game, a series-winning game for the Florida Panthers. And as Frankie showed, I mean, it starts very, very early, and it's a nifty play by Seth Jones. I mean, there's all sorts of opportunity here for the Florida Panthers to deliver. But look, at the end of the night, you look at the contribution of Seth Jones. This play right here is an interesting one. He doesn't touch the puck because if he does, then it's offside on the 3-0 goal. Instead, that's a smart heads-up play. So he was all over the score sheet tonight. His game has gotten better and better throughout the playoffs.
And you know what? You talk about Bill Zito. Brandon Montour left. They couldn't sign him. They had to move on.
Yeah.
They brought in Seth Jones right before the Aaron Ekblad suspension. I don't care. That is a great job addressing the needs of your team. And Brad Marchand, like, for the price that the Florida Panthers pay, I get it. Like, he probably wanted to go to Florida, whatever you want to talk about. But he has done a great job of addressing the needs. And anything that Bill Zito has touched with this team, it's turned gold.
Okay, we have our first post-game reaction from Toronto, and it's the Leafs captain, Austin Matthews.
Austin, how did things go wrong so quickly here tonight?
I don't know. I mean, you know, first period I thought they came out a little bit hungrier than us. I thought we, you know, last half of that period we got our game going, and then I don't know. I don't know how it really got away from us. I think you know, just not on the same page in different areas of the game.
Can you describe the disappointment you must be feeling?
Not really.
Are you tired of doing this?
Yeah, I am. I think we all are. I mean, I think there's 31 teams that go home very disappointed, and obviously we're one of them, so it's not a great feeling.
You can understand the frustration of the fans, though. There was some throwing jerseys on the ice, and there's a lot of booing in this game again tonight. I mean, what's your message to the fans who have had to deal with this year after year after year with this team?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of gather, you know, thoughts on all that so quickly after the game. I mean, I think, you know, you look, you know, back on training camp, just all the work that you put in to get yourself to this point, and you know, it's very, very frustrating, obviously, for us as well as them included. So, you know, it's tough to kind of gather your thoughts on all that right away.
What was your sense of the group coming into this one, Boston?
I felt like we were ready to play. I felt like we were, in a good mindset. Like I said, I thought the first 10 minutes we didn't. They came out strong, and the next 10 minutes I thought we controlled play. And then I just thought we had too many passengers throughout the rest of the game and just weren't on the same page. And they get a couple goals and momentum like that, and then you're chasing the game, and it's hard to get it back. When you're down 3 against a good team that plays sound defensively like them.
What's your thoughts on playing with Austin, with Mitch all these years, and you hope he comes back?
Yeah, I mean, he's like a brother to me, and to all of us. I think we're a very tight-knit group, and we obviously love him to death. That's all I can really say about that.
Were you healthy in this series?
I don't know. I'm not really going to address that right now. It's, you go out there and just try to compete and give your all, and that's what I was trying to do.
Thank you, Austin.
I don't often write down quotes when they do these interviews because it's a lot of cliches about, especially in the middle of the series, about resetting and flushing and all those kind of things. But 3 things there. They came out hungrier than us.
That's a crazy statement to make in a Game 7. Like, that would drive.
It's also true.
But how? How does that
That's
happen?
what we
how
saw.
and the
We
why.
saw
And that's
He's right.
That's what everybody wants to get to the bottom of. It's like, how is that statement made in a Game 7 where a team just gone to the finals 2 years in a row? You would think they'd be dead tired and they don't want to play anymore, and maybe this isn't the year. And they're hungrier than you? That's an insane comment from a captain to make. And if it's true, that's what he thought. It's just,
But
it's
we
crazy.
saw it. That's what we saw.
Yeah.
The thing that makes it even more crazy is that this was like the last dance for this group because of the contracts expiring. So how are you not hungry to maybe say, if we get past this round and maybe we can get past the Carolina Hurricanes, it doesn't have to be the last year because he said it's such a tight-knit group.
Yeah.
Don't you want to stick around and play with each other a little longer?
The other one's not on the same page.
Crazy.
Many passengers.
The last
Too many
ones.
passengers. And I don't blame him. Like, he's right. He's doing perfect analysis. It's just that how can that happen?
I appreciate him being truthful if those are his observations, because they were ours too. But that's what people get frustrated with. It's the how and the why are those comments coming out of the captain after a Game 7.
In a few minutes, we'll get into the future of core players on the Toronto Maple Leafs. One of those will be John Tavares.
John, how did things turn so south so fast in this one for you guys?
Yeah, they just executed a lot better than we did, and once they got the lead, kept pressuring us, and we didn't execute well through that, and obviously led to their lead increasing, and then us trying to find our game and make up a big hole, and obviously difficult to do against that team.
John, it's tiresome to come out here year after year, same result at the end with a group that's this good.
Absolutely.
Can you describe the disappointment that you must be feeling right now? It's hard, but
It's difficult, very difficult.
John, it looked a lot like Game 5. How do you explain back-to-back home ice performances like that?
Yeah, it's obviously a significant difference in the series, and get to where we want to get to. That's it's not good enough. So, team we're playing against, and how hard they make it on you, the consistency that they play with, game to game, shift to shift, and obviously it's disappointing, frustrating.
John, what's it meant to you to represent this team in the city?
It's meant everything to me. It was a big decision I made 7 years ago, and I've loved it. It's been amazing for myself and my family. So, just accept responsibility. We haven't been able to come through and play well enough to get to where we want to get to, and unfortunately, our season ending today.
Would you like to be back?
Yes.
How tough was it to process the fan displeasure here tonight, considering what you just said?
Yeah, I mean, passion is a significant word amongst this fan base, and it's really special, and, feel their disappointment. It's tough. Never want to see the jerseys on the ice. but we just didn't play well enough.
Does this core deserve another chance, John?
I mean, I know you guys will have your opinions. Obviously, management will make their decisions, but obviously a very good team that's done a lot of good things, just haven't broken through. So, never going to quit, never going to stop trying. So, I'd love another opportunity.
Does a game like tonight tell you how far away from a Stanley Cup you are?
Yes and no. I think clearly there's levels that we got to get to and growth that we need to have, but we did a lot of good things in the series to come to this point and have this opportunity. So fortunately, we have to learn again.
There were too many passengers. Those were Austin's words when we spoke to him a minute ago. How do you explain that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think you accept responsibility individually and as a group. That just wasn't good enough. I liked our attitude and mindset and preparation through today. Obviously, disappointing. You accept responsibility. That's not good enough.
Thank you, John.
Was this Mitch Marner's last game as a Leaf? Here he is.
I mean, obviously the effort level. I liked our end of the first period. Second, we gave them opportunities they didn't miss.
Mitch, what kind of emotions are you feeling right now?
Sadness, obviously, depression, Yeah, I don't know all of it.
Your future is a big one being discussed these days. I know it's really close to your season just ending, but where do you stand on contracts and coming back and your thoughts?
I don't have any thoughts right now. I mean, like I said, pretty devastated with what just happened. Devastated. I've always enjoyed this team and this city, like I've always said.
Is there not a small part of you, though, that thinks maybe it would just be better to move on?
Sorry?
Is there not just a small part of you that thinks maybe it would be better to just move on?
Like I said, I haven't thought about anything. Just thought about coming here every day and trying to put my best foot forward and help this team win hockey games and help try to win that ultimate goal. And
How much
fell
did you
short.
enjoy playing with Austin?
It's been amazing. I mean, everyone on this team, so many skilled guys, but obviously playing with Austin for the last 6-7 years, whatever it's been, he makes the game easy, and he's one of the best for a reason.
Somebody who grew up in
processing the fan displeasure tonight? Sorry? Was it like processing the fan frustration tonight as a little? I don't know. I mean, you feel for it. I mean, I'm feeling the same way. It's like I said, it's sad. It's heartbreaking. It's something you don't enjoy. We're not happy with that outcome either, and that's how it goes.
What's it meant to you to be a Maple Leaf?
It's meant everything. It took maybe a risky pick on a small kid from Toronto, and I've been forever grateful to be able to wear this Maple Leaf and be a part of some of the great legends here, and be able to wear this jersey. So I've never taken a day for granted, and always loved it.
Do you believe this core could get it done one day? Do you want another shot?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. It's like I said, it's devastating right now. We had a great year. Everything was going right. It's a great game 6, and fell short again. And it's tough to really put emotions or anything forward, thinking about future.
Austin's words were there were too many passengers tonight. We saw your frustration in the second period. Like, how do you explain that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, that's the right wording, I'd say, as well. Can't have passengers in a game 7, so it just sucks. I mean, we all got to hold ourselves to higher accountability, and we all need to be better.
Thank you, Mitch.
Lots of passengers, no pilots.
Yeah.
So you heard Tavares. Do you want to come back? He says yes. Clearly, he's made that clear. Marner doesn't want to talk about it. It kind of felt like the end, didn't it?
It sure did. And Tavares, when he was asked, does this group of guys deserve one more chance? He almost blurted it out with yes, and we have to learn again. It's like, no, there's no more chances. Like, you guys have had enough cracks at it, And I understand it is difficult to win, but the common denominator is all those guys have been a part of it. They just can't get over the hump. To come back with the same group of players and say they need to just be together and they'll break through would be complete insanity, in my opinion.
Well, and look, that's the hockey directions side of it, right? And I think that most fans would understand and appreciate that sentiment because this group hasn't worked collectively. It hasn't worked. But the counter argument to that is, okay, if you let Mitch Marner walk, and I mean, he's entitled to unrestricted free agency, and it seems most likely that's the scenario. I mean, Toronto tried to get him to waive his no move, his no trade clause, to go to the Carolina Hurricanes at the deadline, and he wouldn't do it. You know, I think that Toronto was comfortable at one point of paying Mitch Marner on a mega extension of 8 years, upwards of $13.5 million per year.
You said they were comfortable at some point in doing that?
Yeah, I don't know what their comfort level is today as we have this conversation, but also keep in mind that it has been the direction of Marner and to a degree Sam Bennett. They're represented by the same player representative in Darren Ferris, who collectively they like to get to July 1st. Doesn't mean that, you know, Bennett isn't going to stay in Florida or Marner isn't going to accept, you know, whatever the Toronto Maple Leafs put in front of them. But I do think that it's time and it's fair to have the conversation that if you're willing to embrace that level of change, do you reinvest that 13.5 elsewhere? But are there players available better than Marner and Tavares? Collectively, are you going to get more from 2 or 3, 4 guys than what you got to this point from Tavares and Marner?
If you look at this year's UFA class, you're going to be hard-pressed to say that there's 2 guys or 3 guys that you're going to plug in for that collective money, whatever it is, and they're going to be better players on paper.
Right.
But is it a better mix for the group? Does it change things at this time of the year? Like, that's something we don't know. But we can talk about how this is devastating for the fan base and it's crushing. This might end up being a positive. This could be the thing that really changes the franchise and says, now it looks different. Now we have to, we operate a different way, because you can only operate so differently if the same core guys, your same nucleus guys are there. So it could be a positive at the end of the day.
I mean, there are 32 teams fighting for the same player.
Is there a chance that they don't make an offer to Mitch Marner?
That feels like a stretch, but I can't sit here and say that there's no chance.
When you go to a player and say, do you want to waive because we want to bring in another player, that typically fractures the relationship where there's generally no coming back from. That's just my opinion and my experiences. When that transaction goes down, we want to move you to bring in another guy. That's kind of tough to come back from. I mean, you saw the fans booing him at the end of the game. The whole Mitch Marner coming back here seems like a real stretch. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bring John Tavares back, and I wouldn't bring. You got to bring different players. But you brought up the point. You better bring some damn good players in here, because to even get to the playoffs, those guys are massive contributors to getting you there. So whatever you do, they better be good.
But there's also bigger roster management in this. I mean, so you cut bait on Mitch Marner and you cut bait on John Tavares. Who's playing center? Tavares scored 38 times this year. How are you replacing that offense, the offense of Mitch Marner at 102 points, right? And on top of that, you've got Austin Matthews, who isn't on an 8-year contract extension. Are you kind of, if it fails miserably, you don't get Bennett, you don't get Ekblad. You're not able to acquire the pieces that you feel you need by maybe throwing Morgan Riley out there, who's got a no move clause. I mean, now you're starting to play the game, okay, well, does our captain really want to go through a renovation, or call it whatever you want?
That's what we've gone through every year. You mentioned John Tavares' 38 goals. That's great. They don't win. Austin Matthews scored 69. That's great. You don't win. Mitch Marner gets 100 points. That's great. You don't win. So you have to balance of the individual statistics and what they do from the regular season to what it actually means for that game right there.
If you put yourself in those 2 players' shoes, Mitch Marner and John Tavares, so if you're Mitch Marner, you get 13.5 years, you're doing that same press conference every single year. You lose in the first round, the second round, that's what you're getting every year. For John Tavares, the center market for UFAs this year, there's going to be a team that will pay him a lot of money and give him some term.
Sure,
because there's a lot of teams that need centermen. I could think of 5 off the top of my head that
100%.
would really use a guy like that. So the expectation is stay in Toronto for less money.
Hold on.
And deal with.
You don't have to push me.
and deal with getting booed. And deal with. It's like, if you're those guys, don't you look at it and say, I think I've probably had enough, just as much as the team may have had enough.
But fairly or unfairly, Mitch Marner has developed into a whipping boy in Leafs Nation, especially from the fan base. You 2 guys are Leafs alumni. You're unrestricted free agents. You're coveted by 30 teams around the National Hockey League. Are you going to sit here and go, okay, yeah, I'm just going to take it. I've got a young family. I'm going to listen to it for the next 8 years of my life, as opposed to get to July 1st and maybe one of the two Florida teams has a presentation that makes a whole lot of sense.
Hey,
maybe Vegas comes out of the woodwork. I don't know how they make the money work. You guys would do the same.
Every athlete's got an ego. I do too, Jimmy. And I would want to just see.
That's new.
I've never seen it.
I would want to see what's available.
Yeah.
And I want to be wined and dined, and I want to see who's interested.
Yes.
You only get that one crack, and every player should experience it.
We're also living in a 32-team league now, and there's teams that are desperate to be what the Toronto Maple Leafs are, a team that makes the playoffs every single year. They'll figure out the rest later, but they want to get there first.
Perception outside this market. They were the 5th to last team eliminated.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs 9 straight years. There was a ton of franchises that would trade places with that. But in this market, they're just tired of the same old result. Let's hear from the head coach, Craig Berube.
Craig, how did the game get away from the team tonight?
We got out of the first period. You know, they came hard the first 10, 11 minutes. You know, we weathered that storm. I thought we started to come, took a penalty, killed it off. So going into the second, you know, it was more of the same like the first. I mean, we just didn't handle the pressure tonight that they came with. You know, we got it, you know, so obviously wasn't good enough.
Craig, just on your right, Game 5 and Game 7 looked a lot alike. How do you explain those two performances on home ice?
Well, I don't know. That's the frustrating part, that, you know, we put ourselves in a good spot in both games coming home, and we just had disappointing games for sure. I mean, go down there and win a Game 6, play extremely well. It's frustrating. I don't have an answer for you for that question.
Craig, you know the history and the passion of the hockey fan in this town. 2 consecutive home games, booed in the second period, jerseys on the ice. Does this team, the composition of this team, need to change to have more fire in it?
I think this team has fire. I mean, like I said, I can't explain right now, or do I want to? 5 and 7 at home. That's, you know, it's obviously things that we got to look at and talk about as a organization.
Craig, from where you sit, what was the most disappointing part of this series?
Games 5 and Game 7 at home. You know, I thought we did a great job fighting for home ice. Had a good home record all year, you know. To me, that's the most disappointing part in the series.
Hey, Craig, we talk about roller coaster, the playoffs, ebbs and flows and all these things, but is it more perplexing to you, given the way you guys played in Game 6, to be that high and then to drop down to whatever this was tonight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, you know, coming off that Game 6, you know, come home for Game 7, you're feeling really good. But, you know, they were the better team tonight. They were the more desperate team tonight. They were the more aggressive team tonight. That's what I take out of the game tonight. You know, you win a Game 6, that's great. You come home, you know, you got to have a level of desperation, determination, and I didn't feel we had it.
Craig, we saw your frustration on the bench, Mitch yelling at his teammates. Austin said after the game, too many passengers. Where does that all come from? Like, why did that happen in this way, in this game, in this moment?
Well, frustration sets in, I think. When you don't get, you know, everybody on board and doing the right things and playing together as a team, that's what happens. You know, that's what happens. You can't go in a game like tonight and have any pass. You can't have anybody not on their best, at their best. And doesn't mean, you know, fancy plays or all these plays, skilled plays. It's just, you're at your best when you're highly competitive, winning your battles, desperation, doing everything possible to win the hockey game. And we didn't do that tonight. And that's why the result was the result.
Craig, you came in here this year with fresh eyes. You won a cup in St. Louis. You didn't live the past playoff series with this team, but you were aware of them, obviously, when you took this job. How much of that baggage with the guys that have been here a while play a part in a moment like tonight, where it looks like the moment's too big for them?
Well, I look at, I don't think the moment's too big for them. I think it's, we went into Ottawa and won Game 6 and won a series. We went into Florida and won Game 6 to make it a Game 7. So the moment's not too big. For me, it's all between the years. It's a mindset. These guys are capable of doing it. You just got to execute it, and we didn't execute it. We didn't execute it in Game 5. We didn't execute it in Game 7. I don't have an answer for that. Why? But that's the bottom line. Thanks.
Yeah, it's well said. It's the same answers we've been looking for. And here is what is ahead in this off season. Of course, the big one, Nyes will get signed back. Marner, Tavares are the keys, and the others down the list. The follow-up to those two guys at the top is this the end of the Shanna plan?
I mean, that's where you want to go to, right? When you're looking off ice. I mean, we've already talked about some of the significant moves that could be made to change the nucleus, the look of the Toronto Maple Leafs from a roster perspective. I mean, Shanahan's in the final year of his contract. You've got Keith Pelly, who is there now in charge of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, effectively overseeing, the sports operations under the umbrella of MLSE. I would argue that, what does that change by bringing in someone to replace Brendan Shanahan, whoever that might be, if they replace Shanahan?
Well, just accountability. The feeling, I suppose, that someone has to pay.
I would look at the way the management and the coaching staff is structured currently, right? And never before, under the Shanna plan, have you had the level of synergy and connectivity that they have right now between Shanahan, Brad Treliving, and Craig Berube. Just the way they think the game, philosophically and otherwise. So, everybody has to be held accountable. If Keith Pelly and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment think that, all right, you've had way more than enough time, we need somebody else, or maybe we don't need anybody at all, because Keith Pelly, as we know, is a fairly communicative guy. Right. Maybe you don't need that middle guy.
Having Brendan Shanahan sitting in the press box watching this game doesn't change what happened on the ice. Right. Like, other than the players that are there, obviously he would have had plenty of say as far as them being there, but it doesn't change the performance. Doesn't change the performance in Game 5. Like, if you move on from the president, you're basically saying, like James said, there's an accountability thing, or there's, we're going in with a different vision, a different voice, whatever you want to call it. But as far as what happened on the ice tonight, like, there's a certain level where that's on the players who performed or didn't perform in that game.
Well, that's what the coach talked about time and time again. It gets to this point after a series victory or in Game 7 of the first round, and Craig Berube talked about it. They just didn't execute. And execute is a word they go to a lot. It's just not getting it done. So when Brendan Shanahan took over the team, this operation was a mess. It was a complete mess. And he built a team, and he believed in these guys that they could execute in these situations, and it's simply the players not doing it.
Yeah. Just with Shanahan, we got to remember, like, when he took over, one of the first things he ever said was, it's easy to have a plan. It's hard to stay with it.
Right.
For better or worse, he stuck with his plan. He didn't deviate. And so, like, we kind of
but that would be the criticism, though, is that you didn't make the changes, you didn't change the core, and you got the same results.
No, but I
believed in these players.
But he believed in these guys. He said, like, everyone can put together a plan.
Right.
It's just, year to year, you're going to change it. You're not going to have any growth, any continuity. He believed with these guys. He stuck with them. He stuck with his game plan, basically.
I know, but I'm saying that he did stick to his plan, but I'm saying that if they decide to make a change, it would be because he stuck to his plan.
Yeah, and by the way,
you know what I'm saying?
Most people do think they will make that change.
Right.
I just don't I don't know how that's going to change how next year is going to look for the Toronto Maple Leafs or Leafs.
Well, and the questions won't just be about Shanahan. They won't just be about Tavares and Marner, but they'll be about players that have contracts, which include Morgan Riley. Let's hear from him.
Morgan, what went wrong here tonight?
Lots. I mean, obviously, we're not happy with the outcome.
How did it get away from you after the first? What was your sense of the group in the second period?
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, there was a period there, where they get 3, and we're not able to weather the storm or push back, and in there somewhere is a pretty crucial part of the game. Obviously, played a big role in the outcome.
Can you describe the disappointment you must be feeling?
I don't think so. No. No.
Can you understand the frustration of the fans? I mean, there was some people throwing their jerseys.
Yep.
What's your message to those fans who have endured this along with you?
No one's given up. Obviously tonight is a bad night. So we feel extremely disappointed, and yeah.
Austin said there were too many passengers. How does that happen on a night like this?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it feels. I don't think it's because people don't care. I think it's, I don't know what exactly, but I just don't think we had our best stuff in the most important game of the season. That's unacceptable, and that's the result you get when that's the case.
With a personal side, you come out here at the end of every season, at the end of every series, whatever it happens to be, and kind of the answers are the same or the questions are the same. How tiring does this get when you guys have been this good for this long and have never been able to sort of get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think, to be here is part of it. But, I mean, here, as in, speaking with you guys, is not ideal. But, I mean, the real frustration is about not moving on the ice. I don't care about this stuff. This is just part of it. The real frustration is there's a game, there's an Eastern Conference Finals game happening in a couple of days, and, we're not there. So, in terms of answering questions and, giving repeat answers, I apologize. I'm not trying to. But, that's not the frustrating part. The frustrating part is what happens on the ice.
Did you guys let the Panthers off the hook in the series, up with a chance to up 3-0, and then these 2 home games at the end of the series?
I mean, that's how it feels right now. But, I mean, everything bad that you feel at the end of a playoff series is how it feels right now, whether that's, you feel like you didn't play your best in the last game, or you let him off the hook, or, you had him in a position where you could have gone up. But, I mean, that's what we feel. We feel all of that right now.
Mitch's future is uncertain. What's it been like playing with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredible hockey player. There's no two ways about it. So I can't speak on his future, but he's been a joy to watch over the last couple of years.
What's your belief, Morgan, that this core could eventually break through, get to a conference final? Or
I think you want to have that internal belief, no matter what, and I think that's where we're at.
Thank you, Morgan.
2 of the Panthers heroes, Seth Jones and Brad Marchand.
For both of you guys, just obviously it's a tight first period. You guys come out, score in the second, and then have a flurry of goals in the second period. Just what did you guys see that was working for you in the first period and that allowed you to execute in the second?
I mean, early on, we had a lot of really good pressure. We were just playing very tight. With their speed and skill, we had to be above them. We did a really good job at reloading. They were very quick at closing when pucks were coming around the wall, and they were transitioning very well. So they weren't able to get a whole lot going. They did get a couple breakaways early, obviously, and Bob closed the door. And after that, we were able to tighten it back up a bit and do the job defensively. That's where that team is extremely dangerous. They create breakaways and 2-on-1s and automatic rushes out of nothing plays. And We got caught a couple times early. Bob backed us up, and then after that, we just did a great job at being above them and just kind of forcing everything up the wall, and then allowed us to transition. So we executed well.
Seth, obviously your goal huge to break it open there. Just what did that moment feel like, and just how nice was that for the team after such a tight first period to finally get that first goal?
Yeah, it felt good. I don't even know who's on the wall still. I haven't seen it, but it was a great little inside play. I was just trying to join the rush, be aggressive, and try to find an opening and put a puck to the net. It was a tight game, but trying to make a difference, offensively or defensively when I can.
Brad, it almost seems like you've become the Maple Leafs executioner with two different teams multiple times. Do you kind of think about it that way?
Well, I appreciate that, but that, no, I don't look at it that way. I think if you look at the past, I haven't played well in Game 7s against Toronto. So, I mean, no one player wins any. I just happen to be part of, good teams that have had the upper hand. But if you actually historically look at the games, I didn't play well. It wasn't me that beat them. It was our team, and our teams have always been really deep and good. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of a really, really deep team here right now. So no, I don't look at it that way. Just sometimes that's how the dominoes fall, and in those games we get a couple good bounces, and they were on the bad end of that. I think if you look at the heat this team catches, it's actually really unfortunate. They've been working at building something really big here for a while, and they were a different brand of hockey this year, and they're getting crucified, and I don't think it's justified. Just because they're able to do it. I mean, we're a really good deep team too, and that's how things go sometimes. So, no, I don't look at it that way. It's just how things go sometimes.
What have we come to? The ultimate Leafs nemesis, the ultimate Leafs trash talker, is now praising the Leafs after he beats them for a 5th straight time in a playoff series. That, very kind words there by Marchand, but I think it's almost a slap in the face that the guy you've hated most now sympathizes with you because of the way you're being treated after another loss.
He's got to shut up, man. Those are insane comments. Does he not someone give him a piece of paper with that on it? 5 times you punched him out of the playoffs?
37
And he's saying criticism isn't justified? Give me a break, man. I love the kid, but oh my God, those are crazy comments.
I just think that's a little bit of players helping players out. He's got to see it. Brad Marchand, if anyone sees the noise coming out of this market, he's just throwing those guys.
It's the same guy that's going to get on the bus and delete a beer and say, these guys just can't
It's
win
the
when
same
it
thing
counts.
Maurice did after Game 5, where he said, this was one of the closest game of the series. I can't believe the heat the Leafs are
In
getting.
part, though, I think he's right. I mean, this Florida team is a juggernaut, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And how many teams how many people are going to pick the Carolina Hurricanes to beat the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Final? Well, maybe you. I mean, whatever, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying. He's overselling how good the Toronto Maple Leafs were in this series, but to push the Florida Panthers into Game 7, I think the Leafs do deserve some credit.
It's right on par with Sheldon Keefe's comments about more respect in the handshake line. That's what you get. Oh, you were great. You play a different brand. It's still the same result.
If Brad Marchand was talking about Games 1 and 2, I buy that.
Yeah.
Not what we saw from Games 5 and 7.
No, but to Drake's point, I think outside of this market, there is a better appreciation of what the Leafs have done over the last 9 years, always making the playoffs because teams know how hard it is to do that. But again, when you talk about Leafs fans, it's just, I said off the top, this is Groundhog Day 9 years running, and I think it's just, they've come to the end as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Our entire post-game that we just did will be available on YouTube if you missed some of it. For now, we'll send it back to SportsCenter.